ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna and welcome all the devotees. Uh, First of all, thank you so much for joining this evening Amrit Snan with the Srimad Bhagavatam again. In today's session, we are going to take a dip. I'll give you an overview of the 34 verses along with the key takeaways or messages given to us by Shukdev Goswami through those verses. I have got about 30 pills, 30 spiritual pills, or you can say the 30 messages what we get from the second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam first canto. And the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is very important. But of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, the first two cantos, canto 1 and 2, are very, very important. Those are Krishna's lotus feet. We should never leave them. And of these two cantos, the second chapter, the first canto, is very, very important. It's very, very important. I don't have the words to emphasize the importance of the second chapter. If we simply read it again and again and apply, if not all these messages, at least few of the messages, then our liberation is completely guaranteed. Whenever there is any sacrifice, particularly on the spiritual matters, it is customary to recite the verses from the second chapter of the first canto. They will recite one line, for example, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo, Om Swaha, right? Then recite the next line, then Om Swaha. This is how the sacrifice is conducted. So this chapter is very, very important. The messages are very, very important. And as I said, I have got about 30 spiritual pills, and I'm excited to share those pills with you. So, starting with the first pill, the first message we get from this chapter is that when we approach a devotee or a bona fide guru, we should ask meaningful questions relating to Krishna. And if we do so, three things will happen. We will get satisfied, the guru will be happy, and the third thing, that question and answer will benefit the entire world. We have the example of Arjuna. Arjuna asked the question. He was satisfied because he got the answers to his questions. Krishna was very much pleased because he saw that Arjuna was enthusiastic to learn from him. And third, the conversation between Arjuna and Krishna has been benefited in the past, benefiting now, and continue to benefit in the time immemorial. Similarly, the Srimad Bhagavatam is nothing but the conversation starting with Krishna and Brahmaji, then Brahma and Narad and Vyasdeva, then Shukdev Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj, then Shaunak Rishi, and Sutta Goswami. And when Sutta Goswami reciting this Bhagavatam, he is referring to the conversations between a number of devotees. For example, there is a conversation between Maitreya Muni and Uddhava. There is a conversation between Janak Maharaj and Navyogendras, and that way we have so many conversations throughout the Bhagavatam where different devotees have posed different type of questions. So the first thing we should remember, when we ask the questions or any inquiry, it will satisfy the person who is asking the question. Second, will please the guru, the person who is giving the answer. The third, the conversation will benefit everybody who hears that conversation because it relates to Krishna. The second message, the motivation to preach Bhagavatam should be Karuna. Karuna the compassion for the living entities should be the only motivation to preach Srimad Bhagavatam. If there is any other motive, not the financial motive, not the monetary gain, but even if there is any intention to get any name and fame, then the preaching will not be effective. There are two things. One is Daya, second is Karuna. Daya means we respond to someone's request. Someone is in a pitiable condition, he begs us, he requests us, and we respond to him. We show him some favor. We do something for him. That's a Daya. Karuna means person is not asking me anything. He is not asking me any favor. He is not asking for any help. But still, I know that the person is suffering, and without he seeks my help, without he approaches me, I extend my hand. I show compassion on him. So, when we talk about preaching, from the second chapter, in the very beginning, we get this lesson that there should be no motivation other than to show compassion on the fallen souls, on the suffering living entities, and this will lead to the pleasure of Krishna. And the best example of the compassion, Karuna, is Srila Prabhupada. Nobody asked Srila Prabhupada to go to West and suffer among the people who were leading a life of Shudras. So he volunteered himself to go and suffer among the people who were suffering, but just for the sake of relieving them from their suffering. Okay? The third thing, before we drink Srimad Bhagavatam, right, we know that we have the instruction, Pibad Bhagavatam. And Pibad includes hearing, repetition, and contemplation. Before we do any of these three things, we should offer our respects to Guru, Srila Vyasadeva, Saraswati Devi, and Lord Krishna. And that's why before we start reciting the Srimadam Bhagavatam verses, we recite Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Right? And we should, because when we offer the respect to Guru, to Vyasdev, Saraswati Devi, and Lord Krishna, this shows that we are humble. An arrogant person will not be able to understand Srimad Bhagavatam at all. It may appear that he or she is hearing Bhagavatam, reciting Bhagavatam, but if the humility is missing, then Bhagavatam will not show itself to the devotees. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur will offer his obeisances to all the audiences before he starts the class. So that was a standard of the humility he has set for all of us. The next thing is that the true dharma, the real occupation for each and every living entity in this world, not only in this world, even among the worlds of the demigods, is to render service unto Lord Shri Krishna. And the service should be unmotivated and uninterrupted. And if we render the service without any motivation, without expecting anything from Krishna, and that service goes on without any interruption, then it will give us the true happiness and bliss. Or in other words, even after practicing devotion service for years and years, we don't feel bliss while chanting, don't feel bliss while hearing, reciting, contemplating on Bhagavatam, then that means our devotion service has got a defect, which means that either there is some motivation behind the devotional activity, or the devotional activity is not continuous. It keeps getting interrupted depending on our circumstances. And the fifth thing is that we should not make any separate endeavor to get jnana, which is the knowledge, or to become detached from so many material things. We have to simply focus on serving Lord Krishna. And if our focus is there, then jnana and vairagya, knowledge and detachment, will automatically follow. Right? A son has to always focus on how he can serve his father and mother. He should not worried about knowing much about the father, and if the son does so, then father will naturally be very happy, and father will reveal himself, whatever possessions he has got with him. Now the next point, that whatever activities we do according to our varna and ashram, there are 4 varnas: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. And each of the varna, there are 4 ashrams, which is Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanprastha, and Sannyas. And for each of the varna and ashrama, there are prescribed duties. So Bhagavatam says that when we perform our duties, we should keep checking whether those duties, those activities are leading us to the attraction for Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna. And if that is not happening, then Srimad Bhagavatam says it's a waste of our time. It's a useless labor. The next point is that the money, position, name, fame should not be the focus of our activities. The focus of our activity should be Krishna's satisfaction. And if we can satisfy Krishna by our activities, then that activity itself will become a yajna. We don't have to perform any other separate sacrifice. And while performing our activities, whatever material gain we have, material gain doesn't mean just money, it means even the position, it means even the name, fame, power. Yeah. So that should not be used for our own sense gratification. And if at all we want to use for our own sense gratification, it should be used as minimum as possible. And the next point is very interesting. Bhagavatam says that we should have only one desire in our life. We should have only one desire in our life. And what is the desire? We should have the desire to have the healthy life. Because if we have the healthy life, then we will be able to serve Krishna in a better manner. The next point, Bhagavatam says that Krishna exists simultaneously in 3 features. And 3 features are Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. Brahman means the effulgence which is radiated by Krishna's Vigraha, Krishna's Sachidanand Vigraha. Like our body, everyone's body radiates some effulgence, right? But not like Krishna. So Krishna's effulgence is called Brahma Jyoti. Now Paramatma is super soul. Like we have the soul, Krishna has a super soul which keeps our soul conscious. And then Bhagwan, it means the senses, it means the form. So when I say Bhagwan, it includes the effulgence, it includes the Paramatma, it includes even the form also. For example, if you look at me, when you look at me, as soon as there is some effulgence, right? In fractional effulgence is there, you can understand there is a soul, and of course you see the form. So we should focus on Bhagwan feature of Krishna and not on other 2 features, because if we focus on Bhagwan feature of absolute truth, Krishna, that means automatically impersonal Brahman and Paramatma is covered in that. Okay. The next point, simply knowing about Krishna is not enough. Simply memorizing Srimad Bhagavatam is not enough. Service is the key to understanding Krishna. It's like a son who knows everything about the father, but doesn't render any service to his father. then will father be happy with the son? No. So similarly, we should remember that while we are uh, drinking the Bhagavatam, we are hearing, we are reciting, we are contemplating, but that should lead to effective service unto Krishna. Our Guru Maharaj always used to say that in our one hand we should have Bhagavatam, other hand we should have the broom. Means we should be doing Bhagavatam, Seva, as well as service to the Lord and devotees simultaneously. Now, regardless of our profession, the highest perfection of any activity is the pleasure of Krishna. If Krishna is not pleased, then that work has no value. So whatever activities we do in our day-to-day life, we should keep checking whether those activities will please Krishna or not. And if Krishna is not pleased, then the activity has no value. And what pleases Krishna most? It's a very simple thing. Simply follow the instructions of Krishna given in the scriptures, and who will tell us these instructions? These instructions are explained by the gurus and the sadhus. So in a sense, if we follow Guru Sadhu Shastra, then Krishna will be pleased. Our activities, day-to-day activities, should be in line with the directions of Guru Sadhu Shastra. And the next point, our attention should always be on four things as given in this second chapter: to hear, to glorify, to remember, and worship Krishna in any situation, any circumstances. So when Bhagavatam says our attention should be on Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, that means we should not pay undue attention to our day-to-day life circumstances, which may be favorable at some point of time, and just the next point of time, they may turn to be unfavorable. Just as Arjuna's focus was completely on bird's eye, he was not distracted by anything. Similarly, our focus should be only on Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, about Krishna. And the rest of the things should be given the attention, but not undue attention. Because undue attention to material activities will distract us from serving the Lord. The next point, that if we keep remembering Krishna, that would relieve us from the reactions of our past actions. But one thing we should remember, that remembrance of Krishna will come only when we have a proper hearing and we have a proper repetition of what we have heard. The next point is again very interesting, that if we want to develop a deep attraction and love for Bhagavatam and Krishna, Bhagavatam has given us a solution. Many times people ask, how can I develop my attraction to Bhagavatam? How can I develop my love for Krishna? And the Bhagavatam says, if you want to gain affinity for Bhagavatam and Krishna, then we should serve the great devotees. Or in other words, if we do not have attraction for reading, hearing, contemplating on Bhagavatam, that means we are ignoring the devotees. Or if we are not ignoring the devotees, we are associating with them, then we are offending one or other devotees. And that's why we are lacking our love for Bhagavatam and love for Krishna. Next point, hearing about Krishna is Punya Shravan. It's a pious hearing. This means hearing anything other than Krishna is not a pious hearing. Guru Maharaj used to say, when he would speak about this verse, he says, hearing about Krishna is a Punya Shravan. Everything else, unnecessary hearing, while we are doing our material activities is Pap Shravan. Hearing about Krishna will purify us spiritually, and hearing anything other than Krishna unnecessarily will contaminate our spiritual life. Now, the next point, daily reading and recitation of Bhagavatam is the best means to remove any inauspicious thing from our life. Or, in other words, if we feel that there are inauspicious things in our life, that means we are not serving Bhagavatam every day. And to remind us again and again, Prabhupada said, before we start serving Bhagavatam, we must recite a verse, which we did even today, and we have been doing even on other days also. So that verse is, Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Uttama Shloke, Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu. Abhadreshu means inauspicious things. They get almost everything inauspicious will get destroyed from our life if we serve Bhagavatam every day. And serving, remember, it's a pibatam. We have to do three things as a Shravan, Supatan, Vicharano. Three things has to be done. So inauspicious thing will be removed, and Krishna will be established in our heart in a very firm manner. Like even if you want to remove it, you can't remove it. And Bhagavatam says very interestingly that once Krishna is established in our heart, Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. Bhakti means devotion unto Krishna will be established in our heart very firmly. So wherever the devotion is there, Krishna is there. Wherever hearing and chanting is there, Krishna is there. So devotion is fixed in our heart, means Krishna has taken his seat permanently, very firmly in our heart. So as soon as that happens, all the inauspicious things, we can take the example of the greed, lust, anger, illusion. Those will start disappearing from our heart, right? Because our heart has already been occupied by Krishna. So they have to leave the place. As soon as sun is there, the clouds have to disappear. Clouds cannot stay in the presence of sun. So that's a potency of reciting Srimad Bhagavatam every day. The third point is, if we have any doubt about spiritual matters, of course, we can ask the devotees. But Bhagavatam says we should try to find out the opportunities to serve Krishna and devotees more and more. The more we serve Krishna and devotees, the doubts will start disappearing from our heart. The presence of Krishna and devotees in our life is like a presence of sun in our dark life. And so whatever doubts which are like clouds will start getting vanished from our life. Another interesting thing we get from this chapter is that bhakti should be performed in a happy mood. Bhagavatam says the saints and sages, they perform the devotion service in a happy mood. But the problem with us, whenever we are in front of Krishna, we are not in a happy mood. And that's not the way to perform the devotional service. The next point, instead of seeking temporary gains from the demigods, we should hanker after the permanent gain, eternal gain, which is service unto Krishna, which is a permanent residence in Krishna's loka. And therefore, we should directly worship Krishna instead of offering our worship to demigods, and the demigods will offer our worship to Krishna. The next point, the great sages have always worshipped Krishna. So when it comes to worshipping Krishna, we should follow in the footsteps of the great acharyas, and we should take the instructions from Krishna on how to serve the Lord. Like Srila Prabhupada, he taught us how to serve the Krishna and his devotees. And if you do this, if you follow this process, this will lead us to the liberation. The next point is that Krishna's form is eternally blissful. It's a Satchidanand Vigraha. Only Krishna's form and Vishnu Tattva's forms are Satchidanand Vigraha, which are full of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. And any form other than Krishna or Vishnu Tattva is not Satchidanand, is not permanent. So the message is that we should focus on the Satchidanand form, which is Krishna, Vishnu, Ram, Lord Nrsimhadev. And we should not focus on the temporary forms that may be no matter how great is a person or the demigod. Okay? The next point, if we just worship our forefathers, demigods, and don't worship Krishna, then that means we desire money, we desire good wife, husband, education, position, we desire everything material, and we do not have any interest in getting a permanent benefit. The next point, Vasudeva. Vasudeva means the son of Vasudeva. He is the ultimate goal of everything. He is the ultimate goal of any kind of knowledge. He is the ultimate goal of any kind of sacrifice. He is the ultimate goal of any kind of austerities. So the point Bhagavatam is making, that when we perform any kind of sacrifice, any kind of yoga, austerities, auspicious activity, instead of seeking material goals, we should think of pleasing Krishna. We should direct our energy towards pleasing the Lord. Okay. The next point, the Krishna is the ultimate source of everything. When I say everything, it means not only the living entities, everything includes everything. It includes the five gross elements, it includes the living entities, it includes the creation, each and everything we see in this world and in other material and spiritual worlds. So the point we should understand from this, that we should not spend our time, our excessive time, in analyzing and understanding Krishna's energy. Prabhupada says the problem with the scientist is that they keep spending their time in analyzing this creation, but they don't spend time on understanding the source of the creation. Yeah. The next point, Krishna is within everything. Krishna is within each and every atom. So we should recognize Krishna's presence in each and everything. And the point to remember is that if Krishna is present in each and everything, then we should respect all living and non-living things. And we should remember the things what we kick in our day-to-day life so many times in a day, forgetting that Krishna is present in each and every those things. Everything we experience, everything, whatever is happening in our life, that's Krishna's plan. Krishna has sanctioned those things according to our past karma. So we should accept Krishna's plan as it is, without any grudges. And the last point is that Krishna is the maintainer of all the living beings. So if Krishna is the maintainer of all the living beings, that means Krishna is the master of all the living beings. And Krishna is the master of all the living beings. That means all the living beings are the servants of Krishna, and they must keep serving Krishna eternally. And the final last point is that we should always take the shelter of Krishna, because he personally comes to save his pure devotees. Today, I'll give a very high level overview of what has been discussed in the second chapter of the Bhagavatam, of the first canto. So, as I mentioned in one of the earlier sessions, that about 5,000 years ago, a large number of sages gathered at Naimisharanya to perform a 1,000 years of sacrifice to attain liberation and for the welfare of all human beings. But soon after they gathered, they realized that Kali Yuga has begun, and the Kali Yuga is full of quarrel, and the people in the Kali Yuga are short-lived and always disturbed. So then they realized another thing, that Kali Yuga is not apt for performing sacrifices. The lifespan is too short to perform such a prolonged sacrifice. So then they decided to abandon 1,000 years of sacrifice, and they decided to hear the glories of Krishna. And they selected Shaunak Rishi as the representative who will ask the questions from Sutta Goswami, again a great devotee of Lord Krishna. So they posed a number of questions to Sutta Goswami, starting with the first question, that what is the ultimate good for all the human beings? And thereafter they asked a number of questions. And finally, the last question they asked was where the principles of religion have taken the shelter after Lord Krishna's departure. So the first chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it sets the stage for the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, because it seeks to establish the ultimate guide for all the human beings in the absence of Lord Krishna. Or in the simple words, we can say, assume the parents are away from the house, then how the children should live and behave in the house. So since Krishna is not physically present, so Srimad Bhagavatam is a guide for everyone who tells us how to live our life. So the first chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is all about Shaunak Rishi asking the questions from Sutta Goswami. Now the second chapter contains the answers which are given by Sutta Goswami to all the sages who had assembled in the Nemi Sharanya. In the first chapter, Shaunak Rishi asked 6 questions from Sutta Goswami. The first question, what is the ultimate good for every human being? The second question, what is the essence of all the scriptures? Third question, what is the purpose of Lord Krishna's appearance? Fourth question, they wanted to know about the adventures or the Purush avatars of Lord Krishna. The fifth question, they wanted to know what were the various pastimes which were shown by Krishna's various incarnations. And the last question, as I mentioned, they wanted to know where the principles of religion have taken shelter after Lord Krishna departed to his abode. So these were the 6 questions posed by Shaunak Rishi to Sutta Goswami. Now the second chapter of the first canto of Bhagavatam contains the answer for the first questions which were asked by Shaunak Rishi. And the answer to the fifth question, the various pastimes of the Lord Krishna, is given in the third chapter of the first canto, which we will discuss tomorrow. And the last question, where the principles of religion have taken shelter in the absence of Krishna. Answer to that question is also in the third chapter of the first canto. So now in the second chapter, while answering the questions asked by Shaunak Rishi, Suta Goswami starts by telling them that there are many duties in the world for innumerable human beings. But of all those duties, the foremost, the supreme duty is to render a devotion service unto Sri Krishna, and the devotion service should be unmotivated and uninterrupted. And the sages asked, what about, or they wondered, okay, what about other things? For example, the tapa, yajna, dana, and various other varnashrama dharmas, various other duties which have been mentioned in various scriptures. So Suta Goswami said that's all good, and people should perform those duties. But we should remember, while performing those duties, if we don't develop our attraction to Krishna, then that is shram evahi kevalam. The Bhagavatam says any activity performed, but after performing that activity, we don't go to Krishna and we don't get attached to Krishna, then it's simply a waste of time. And Suta Goswami says that we should not have any desire in our life to gratify our senses excessively. We should have only one desire, which is to have the healthy life. And then Suta Goswami says that there are 5 verses, 1 to 17 to 21, 1.2.17 to 1.2.21. These 5 verses. Prabhupada has mentioned that these 5 verses are called the cleansing process. That you follow the process given in these 5 verses, we will be able to completely purify our heart and our existence. And Suta Goswami says the best way to purify ourselves from all type of contamination is Shravanam Kirtanam, that we should hear and chant the glories of Lord Krishna. And when the sages heard these things from the Suta Goswami, that time they realized that hearing and chanting about Krishna is the real yajna in the Kali Yuga. Earlier they were thinking that the devotion to Lord Krishna is not easy to obtain. It's meant for only the great saints and sages. They never thought that even the common people can get attracted to Krishna, can serve Krishna simply by hearing and chanting his glories. And then Suta Goswami says that Vasudeva, which is Lord Krishna, is the source of everything. He is the source of creation, maintenance, destruction. Suta Goswami says that every human being should take shelter of Vasudeva. Everything we do, everything given in the scriptures is meant to please him. So after hearing these words from Suta Goswami, all the sages who had assembled in Naimisharanya, they felt very much inspired that simply by hearing Lord Krishna's wonderful activities, pastimes, his names, forms, etc., they will be able to get the liberation. And they became even more excited to hear about Krishna. So this is a very high-level overview of what has been given in the second chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Vancha kalpatrubhyase kripa sindhu bhavache patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo. So Krishna willing, we will meet again tomorrow. Hare Krishna.